Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Usereme. If this is the first time you're seeing my face, in today's video I'm sharing with you how I am going to be recreating this dress I'm going to be putting right here for you guys to see. For my sister, she's attending an event with her friends this weekend and they have a couple of outfits they want to make. They wanted this particular off-shoulder gown. It's a simple off-shoulder gown with pleated sleeves. So I thought to share with you guys how I'm going to be making it so we can go straight together and make this together. So for this tutorial guys, I'm going to be making use of this fabrics here. Here I have my scuba fabric, which I'm going to use as the band for the shoulder, where you see in the style they used pink. Then here, this is the lining which I'm going to use for the dress, and this is the actual African print fabric itself that we're going to be using to recreate this style. So guys, the first thing I went ahead to do was to fold this fabric into two, as you can see me doing like this. I used her hip measurement as a template, but this folding I did here is way bigger than her hip measurement because I wanted to have enough space for allowances at the end of the day. So the first thing I'm going to do now is to get the full length of this dress. I want to cut out the full length I'm going to be working with. So for this dress, for my measurement that I had, her full length is 37 inches, and let's not forget that this is an off shoulder and this 37 inches is from her shoulder. So I'm going to take 5 inches away from that to get my off shoulder. So I'm going to extend my tape from by 5 inches, then I will take it all the way down. But then again, I have an extra 2-inch band that I'm going to be attaching to this dress. So what I'm going to do is to shift my tape a little bit longer by extra 2 inches. So instead of taking 5 inches away from the top of this fabric, I'm going to take 7 inches away, and from there I decided to measure the full length of this gown, which is 37 inches, but I'm marking these at 38 inches because I want to use the extra 1 inch as the sewing allowances to stitch the down part of it to the lining, and also to attach the upper part to the band. So guys, now that I've cut out the part I'm going to be working with, the next thing I'm going to do is to mark out my measurements on this part of the fabric. So the first measurement I'm going to be marking is the shoulder. For the person I'm making this dress for, her shoulder measurement is 14 inches, and that divided by 2 gave me 7 inches. So I'm marking 7 inches at the top part of this dress here, as you see me doing like this. So the next thing I went ahead to do was to extend my tape rule by that initial 7 inches, and I marked my bust points at 10 inches here. So after marking my bust point, still taking note of that 7 inches I left at the top, I mark my waistline here, as you can see me doing like this. And then after this, I went down to mark my hip line. So these are the lines I'll be needing to take the measurements for this gown: my bust line, my waistline, my hip line, and of course the shoulder line up there. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark out my measurements using the measurement I took from the owner of this dress. So her bust measurements divided by 2, I mark it on the bust line, divided by 4, sorry. Then her waist measurement divided by 4, I marked it there on the waistline. And then her hip measurement divided by 4, I also marked it there at the hip line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to make a curve from the shoulder line to meet the bust line to give me my armhole. As you can see that I made a curve there. So after making the curve, I decided to join all the lines together to give this dress the fitting that it needs. I joined all the lines together, as you can see me doing like this. I just joined all my points together all the way to the end of the fabric. So guys, after joining my points together, I decided to add an extra 1.5 inch to all the initial points I had earlier to serve as my stitching allowances. So now I'm going to just extend my armhole to meet the new allowance I added, and I'm going to make the points to meet each other all the way to the end, like you see me doing like this. So now what I'm going to do is just to use my scissors to cut along this new line I created all the way to the end. So here it is guys, this is the front pattern. So from here now, see how it looks like if I open it up. From here now, I'm going to use this to get the back pattern of this dress, which is actually easier to get. So I'm just going to place this pattern right here on top of the back pattern, and I'm just going to trace it out. So I'm going to place the front pattern on. I folded another part of the material into two, and I'm just going to place the front pattern on top of it, as you can see me doing like this. But I left something about 2 inches allowance on the side before placing it. This allowance I left here is going to be the zipper allowance for the back. So now I'm just going to use my scissors to cut it all round and trace the back pattern out. So this is the front and the back pattern. See, it's really simple when you've already cut out the front pattern to just trace it out, trace the back out with it. So the next thing I went ahead to do was also to trace out my front and back pattern on my lining pieces. So on this black lining, I'm just going to use my scissors to just trace out the same thing, just the same way I did earlier on the back pattern. So guys, now I'm done with the front and back pattern, including the lining. So now I'm going to cut out the arm, and as you can see in the picture, it's a pleated arm, so I would need a lot of fabric to be able to get the pleating. So the full length of this arm is 8 inches. That's including the 2-inch band. So this is, I'm supposed to cut this out with 6 inches, but I decided to cut it out with 7 inches. The extra 1 inch is going to be serving as my stitching allowance. So this whole fabric here is going to be for the arm. That's because I'm going to make gathers. So by the time I make the gathers or pleating, whichever one I decide to do later, it's going to come back and be smaller there. So now I'm just going to place, as you can see, I've placed the front part of it, the armhole of the front part, and I just used it to trace out the armhole of this. So this upper part is going to be where I will create my gathers for the arm. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to put my lining and to stitch my lining and my actual fabric together. So as you can see, I'm putting it together, and what I'm going to do now is to take this to my sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch it all the way around this fabric, but I'm going to be leaving out my armhole part. That's where I'm going to be bringing this, turning this to the right side out through. Also going to do this for the back part as well. So this is how it looks like. I've attached the lining to it. So this is the back. You see how neat it looks already. I've attached the lining to this front piece, and also I attached it to the back pieces as well. As you can see, these are the back pieces. I've attached the lining to the front and the back pieces, and this is what it looks like. Now the next thing I went ahead to do was to mark out where my darts are going to be on this dress. I marked out my darts for both the front and the back pieces using my chalk and my tape rule. So after making this measurement, the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is to take this to my sewing machine and stitch it down along the lines I made. So this is what it looks like after I've stitched it down and ironed it. As you can see, it's not really very clear, but I've stitched it down there, and I also went ahead to do it at the back and stitch down the darts. So this is what the front and the back pattern looks like. Now you can see from here where I make the stitching at the back. So I still have my stitching allowance there on the side of the back, and this part of the armhole, as you can see, is looking rough. Some parts are longer than the other, so I just went ahead to straighten it up here using my scissors. So this is what this is looking like now. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to work on the sleeves of this dress. So for the other upper part, we're going to make gathers. I'm not going to be making pleating. I want to make gathers for this particular one I'm doing. So I'm going to first take the ends of this fabric. I'm going to hem the ends of the fabric, both the back and the front pieces. That's the first thing I'm going to do here. So as you can see, I've hemmed it down here and it's looking very neat. I also went ahead to iron it out. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to make two at the top of this arm here. I'm going to make two gather stitch line, and I'm not going to back stitch at the beginning to be able to enable me to do gather. So that's the next thing I'm going to do now on my sewing machine. So guys, as you can see, I've stitched it down. As I hope you can see the two lines I was talking about. I stitched it down. I didn't back stitch at the beginning, so I have these extra threads here which I'm going to draw to get my gathers. So I'm just going to pick the two upper threads and I'm going to pull on it to make the gathers. I'm going to do the same thing that I'm going to do here for the both pieces. That's the two pieces for the arm. Just be careful while making these gathers, because if you pull too hard, your threads are going to break and you're going to have to start this process all over again. So while making this, you have to be very, very careful. So guys, this is what the two pieces look like after I finish making my gathers. So now what I'm going to do, the shoulder round, the owner of this dress, I measured around her shoulder and it was 36 inches. So I'm just going to take the measurement, check out the measurement from my gown, that's the neck part of the dress, and measure out how many inches I need this arm to be. So that is what I'm going to be doing now. So after I measured out the arm, I realized that the gathers I made were too wide. So I went ahead to make them to just stretch out the rope a little bit longer, and that to get exactly what I want it to be. So now I'm going to place the sleeve, as you can see, on the dress, and I'm just going to pin it down on both sides using my pins. So this is what it looks like after I've held it down with my pins. So I'm just going to take this to my sewing machine and stitch it down on both sides. So guys, I'll stitch it down, and I also went ahead to stitch it down at the back as well. So this is what it looks like. Also, I went ahead to join the back pieces together, leaving some extra inches at the top, which is going to be where I will attach my zipper, and I left some space under that is going to be my slit. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark out all my points, my initial points, my waistline, my hip line, my bust point, so that I'll be able to join the sides of this fabric. So all I have to do is to mark my points that I did earlier when I was cutting this fabric. I'm just going to mark the points on both sides and take this to my sewing machine, and what I have to do is to stitch along the marks I've made. So this is what it's looking like after I stitched down both sides. And the next thing I'm going to do now is to work on the upper part of this dress. Remember, there's going to be a band, so I went ahead to cut out a 4-inch wide band, which I'm going to place at the neck. So what I'm going to do is to just fold it into two, as you see me doing like this, and I opened up my fabric, removed the pins that was holding the zipper parts together, and what I went ahead to do was to pin down my band to the actual fabric, that's the neck. I'm going to pin this down all the way around the fabric like this using my pins. So I'm done holding this down with my pins. So what I'm going to do now is to take this to my sewing machine and stitch it all the way to the end. It's all stitched down, guys, and basically this is all for this video. It's looking so beautiful already. I'm really excited at how this came out. So I've stitched down the neck, and I've attached my zipper sorry I attached the zipper to it, and I've stitched down the neck. So this is how the front looks like. It's really beautiful, and I can't wait for the owner of this dress to try it on, because I know it will be very nice. Thank you so much, guys, for watching this video to the end. I really appreciate you guys for watching. If this is your first time seeing any of my videos, thank you for watching to this end. Please click the subscribe button and become a member of this wonderful family. Thank you so much, guys. I will see you in my next video.